Israeli Air Force is falling apart. Israeli Air Force is falling apart. 1,000 Israeli Air Force reservists demand end to Gaza war to return captives. Now, this 1,000, they do not want to bomb Gaza anymore. This 1,000 Air Force reservists faced a lot of harsh criticism directly coming from Netanyahu. Means Netanyahu is very, very disturbed with this new development that his 1,000 reservists who were supposed to be doing his work of continuing genocide in Gaza have refused to take part in it. Now, this report actually came on Haaretz newspaper, Israeli newspaper. Then I double checked with other sources and I found this report to be 100% true, means it is happening right now. What is happening? What is the story behind this? Well, a group of 1,000 current and former Israeli Air Force reservists called on Thursday for the return of all captives held in the Gaza Strip. Quote, even if it means ending the war. In other words, you bring them back, those captives, no matter what. And you can do whatever you want, but we want these people to be back. That's their demand. That's what they want. Of course, the situation right now is so bad for Israel that it is not just the Air Force, but also their military is actually going against the command coming from Netanyahu himself. The continuation, quote, of the war does not advance any of the declared goals of the war and will bring about the deaths of the hostages, IDF or army soldiers and innocent civilians, end quote, reads a letter published by the reservists in Israeli media. The reservist, he wrote again, the continuation of the war does not advance any of the declared goals of the war. Means this genocide is not going to bring us any solution to the problem. Rather, it will increase and create more problem for everyone involved in this war of Netanyahu. That's pretty much what this letter is reading here. The letter called for, quote, the immediate return of Israeli captives from Gaza, saying that the current war is going on for, quote unquote, political and personal interest. Guys, when I say the Israeli army is falling apart, when I say that it is time for Israeli army to really crumble under the pressure and demand of Netanyahu, I meant it. I meant it. In fact, the situation in Israel so bad right now that they are predicting a civil war between two Jewish groups who are now protesting and fighting on a regular basis. It is again coming from Israeli sources and other sources as well. These two Jewish groups, they are on each other's neck, and therefore we do not expect anything good coming out of it. Quote, only an agreement can return hostages safely, while military pressure mainly leads to the killing of hostages and the endangerment of our soldiers, end quote. The reservist said, calling on Israelis to mobilize for action. Means these reservists, they are not just calling the Air Force, other members, the pilots, to join them, but also they're calling all of the Israelis to join them in this action. I want you to take a look at this particular report from Fox News. They are reporting on Donald Trump's plan about Gaza. This is a new video, new development. Take a listen.
Okay, well, when it comes to the future of the Gaza Strip, President Trump said this yesterday, that it would still be in the best interest for it to be under American control. Watch this.
I think it's something that we would be involved in, but, having a peace force like the United States there controlling and owning the Gaza Strip would be a good thing. And if you take the people, the Palestinians, and move them around to different countries, and you have plenty of countries that will do that, and you really have a freedom zone. You call it the freedom zone, a free zone, a zone where people aren't going to be killed every day. That's a hell of a place.
What about that as a real possibility?
I think it's absolutely a possibility, Carly. We've seen from the beginning that President Trump thinks out of the box, and he's sharing a bold new vision for Gaza. President Trump looks at this property, at this real estate, as he calls it, and he sees this beautiful coastal enclave that has descended into a den of terror. And in contrast, he sees a bold vision for what can be a freedom zone. I think it's a great way to look at it. And part of what the president has laid out is let all of those people in Gaza right now who are living in a war zone, in a demolition zone for the next 15 years, let everyone who wants to leave evacuate from this zone. Let the Israelis, regain security control. And then let's look at this bright tomorrow, a freedom zone.
Okay, so all these promises coming from Donald Trump, but at the same time, he actually has obviously more intelligence than us into what is happening right now in Israel, and that is that this war cannot continue on forever. Now, going back to the topic of this 1,000 reservists and how the Israeli Air Force now is collapsing, the letter's signatures included former Army Chief Dan Halutz. So the letter that was sent, that was signed by hundreds and thousands of people, not thousands, but a lot of them, hundreds of them. It has also the army chief, former army chief of Israeli army, former army chief. I mean, that's a big deal, guys. That's a big deal, because looks like right now they're in a real mess. Israeli army is in a real mess. Only an agreement can return hostages safely, while military pressure mainly leads to the killing of hostages and the endangerment of our soldiers. The letter signatures included former Army Chief Dan Halutz. Israel estimates that 59 hostages are still held in Gaza, with at least 22 of them are still alive. They were expected to be set free, and they are supposed to be actually coming back home. They were expected to be set free in the second phase. If you remember the first phase, then you also have the second phase. They were supposed to be coming back in the second phase, which should be happening in February, but nothing happened. And thanks to Netanyahu, his ego, his genocidal tendencies, and the genocide he's committing in Gaza, they never came back. And they are now, saying they're now afraid that a lot of them got killed. Of course, with everyday bombing, Hamas is saying the exact same thing, that you guys are killing your own people. And so now these people are getting frustrated, these Air Force members, the army. We know the big problem with Shin Bet, Ronen Bar, the chief of Shin Bet, has a big clash with Netanyahu. Where it will end? Well, looks like it is not going to end well for Netanyahu, as we see the end of Israeli army, its military force, right now in a big confusion, and they're conflicting with each other. Subscribe for more updates. See you in the next video.